Being drafted into the NBA is one thing, but staying long enough to complete your career is certainly another. Many stars played for years, but sadly, these NBA players had their careers cut short. If you haven't seen part 1 of this video, be sure to check the link in the description, because in part 2, things get really interesting. Starting with a legendary center, we have Bill Walton. Walton was a basketball genius on the court, from hustling to block shots. None of his teams could do it without him.
Blocked Kareem's skyhook.
And the shot is blocked by Walton from behind.
Totally dominated.
During his prime, he led the Portland Trail Blazers to their first and only NBA championship, way back in 1977.
Rose comes top of the screen, and Walton rolled off the pick beautifully. That's the first time we Blazers ahead of the 76ers by a point. Rose came off, Walton rolling again. And there it is, twice he has rolled off.
He was the finals MVP, and his skills on the court were next-level stuff.
Up by 12, Bibby forces one on Koycik, Walton off. It's Gross to the basket on the breakaway. It's 12 points now. McGinnis on the double team. They hit Neal with the Walton foul. 5-12. 111-97. Looking for the open mid. Neal.
However, he was one of the biggest what-ifs in NBA history. Injuries plagued Walton, particularly foot issues, limiting him to just 468 games over 13 seasons. Walton still managed to win a second championship with the Boston Celtics in 1986, despite all that, proving his resilience. But Shawn Kemp, aka the Rain Man, proved his resilience elsewhere. No kidding. Kemp has fathered at least 7 children with 6 different women. He was active outside the court, and on it, he was one of the most electrifying players of the 90s.
Got it to Kemp, 4 seconds, 3 spins, and what a move! What a move! Young Shawn Kemp. That's a major league move right there.
He was a 6-time NBA All-Star and led the Seattle Supersonics to the NBA Finals in 1996.
To the baseline, slapped away from behind. Ricky goes back to get it, fires it cross court. Kemp's got it right up into the alley. Power slam! Tomahawk slam!
But at the end of the day, his behaviors outside the court won. He clearly lacked some of the fire from his early days as he struggled with his weight, and that affected both his skywalking athleticism and the long-term future of his lower body. The final years of Kemp's career were riddled with minor injuries and various side effects of alcohol and drug addiction, which ultimately made him quit the game. His thunderous dunks and high-flying antics will forever be remembered.
Pass out in front to Kobe Bryant. Down the middle, in the air, gives it back to Eddie. Drives the base, comes underneath, puts it up and it's blocked beautifully by Shawn Kemp.
At least he showed off some serious skills. Len Bias, on the other hand, never got the chance to showcase his talent in the NBA.
16-10 remaining here in Raleigh. Here's Bias with a high looping jump shot, and Mourning, he's got to be the best baseline shooter in the world.
A 2-time All-American, he had a great future ahead of him. A future which he would have certainly competed for domination alongside the legendary MJ. In college, Bias was the more dominant player, particularly when Maryland played Carolina. Bias was bigger, stronger, a better rebounder, and an equal leaper. Drafted 2nd overall by the Boston Celtics in 1986, Bias was expected to be the next big thing.
Ball back to anyone to try and create a 5-second turnover or put the ball in.
Bias over a wall. Boy, he wanted that shot, and Gatlin got him the ball.
Here comes the traps again.
Baxter to Bias over Warren Martin. Put an extra arc on it and got it.
Tragically, he passed away from a cocaine overdose just 2 days after the draft. His death sent shockwaves through the basketball world and highlighted the dangers of drug use. Bias remains one of the greatest what-if stories in sports history. If not for his tragic passing, the defending champion Boston Celtics would have had another superstar to pair with the lethal Larry Bird.
61-56. Still time, 1 minute and 26 seconds left. The All-American shoots from there, hits it.
Given time, there was reason to believe Bias could have ultimately been a better pro than MJ. But here's a guy who dominated right when he entered the NBA, Larry Johnson, or Grandmama, as he was affectionately known, burst onto the scene with the Charlotte Hornets in the early 90s.
And Johnson will lead another break. Went down somehow, someway. And Larry saying hello to the folks in the front row.
He was the NBA Rookie of the Year in 1992 because he was above all other rookies, literally.
And pass. Hill has Curry. Followed by Johnson.
He was also a two-time All-Star. Johnson's back problems, however, began to hinder his performance. By the time he retired in 2001, he had played over 700 games, averaging 16.2 points and 7.5 rebounds per game. But it could and should have been more. His flamboyant personality and powerful play left a lasting impact on the league.
Johnson is three-point territory, but guarded tightly. Johnson cuts left, now fires a three. It is good, and he's fouled. It counts.
For Arvydas Sabonis, leaving a lasting impact was hard considering how he never really stayed in the NBA. Sabonis is a bit different from others on this list. He had a storied career in Europe before joining the NBA at the age of 31.
Nuevamente no ha caído. Vemos la repetición de la jugada. Ahí ven Sabonis ante Fernando Martín. Esmasea. Es más y rompe el tablero.
Contra el 1.58, 1.60 que se le da a Tyron Bosh. Lanzamiento de Robinson con tapón de Sabonis. Kenny Smith metía para Robinson, Bukov. Walters metiendo para Sabonis, ahí Sabonis no puede fallar.
For the Trailblazers, he blazed. Man, watching him almost feels like watching a certain Nikola Jokic in the current NBA.
Wallace, 5 on the shot clock to Sabonis. Shot comes out to play. Sabonis goes around him for the slam. What a pass by Sabonis. Wrap around to Harvey.
Despite his late start and numerous injuries, he was a beast on the court. Over 7 seasons across 2 stints, he showed great talent on the court.
Defensively, and the rest of the Portland team slow to do that time. Sabonis again. Hits another three. 10 out of 10 at the free throw line. The Blazers have taken 20 free throw shots. Pass. Sabonis with the deposit.
But he wasn't consistent. Whether it was his age or the injuries, many believe that if he had entered the NBA earlier and healthier, Sabonis could have been one of the all-time greats. And you could too, if you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications as we approach our last 5 players. Next up, Alonzo Mourning probably had one of the best careers of everyone on this list. He was a dominant force in the paint, known for his shot blocking and rebounding prowess. He was a 7-time All-Star and 2-time Defensive Player of the Year.
Blocked by Alonzo Mourning. And Mourning repels a Hakeem Warwick dunk. Nelson for Dwight Howard. Mourning blocked another dunk.
Look at those blocks. He could literally swat anything that came his way. Or maybe not everything. You see, in 2000, Mourning was diagnosed with a kidney disease that forced him to miss significant time. He tried his best to defend that problem, but despite a successful kidney transplant, his career was never quite the same. Mourning still managed to win an NBA championship with the Miami Heat in 2006, cementing his legacy. At least a championship ring was a fitting way to end it all, and his health issues didn't take him out too soon. Reggie Lewis, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. You see, the Celtics were in a bit of a bind in the late 80s. Their legendary Big Three, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish, were getting up there in age. They needed young players to keep the team competitive. This became even more urgent after the tragic death of Len Bias. They got that in Reggie Lewis, who showed he was more than capable of carrying the torch. By the 1991-92 season, he was leading the team in scoring with almost 21 points per game and was named an All-Star in 1992. He had this smooth, effortless style on the court that made him a fan favorite and a nightmare for opponents.
I wanted to bring out that point earlier. Charles, on his career, 57%. That's incredible. See that move by Reggie Lewis around Dan.
However, tragedy struck during the 1993 playoffs. Lewis collapsed on the court during a game against the Charlotte Hornets. Although he briefly returned to the game, it was clear something was seriously wrong. Further tests revealed a heart condition, and doctors advised him to retire from basketball. But Lewis was determined to make a comeback. Sadly, it didn't turn out well. He collapsed again while shooting hoops during the offseason and passed away at just 27 years old. The NBA All-Star had his jersey retired by the Boston Celtics.
God bless Reggie. We love you and we miss him. Thank you.
Meanwhile, Gilbert Arenas, aka Agent Zero, was one of the most exciting players of the early 2000s. He was a three-time All-Star and had a knack for hitting clutch shots.
Almost a beauty by Rodmanovic. It wouldn't go down. Now Gilbert Arenas for the hole. He can get there, can he? Gilbert Arenas on the attack. 7-4 Washington early. They have a number of us. You always should know where you are, obviously, and if you just look up, you'll be able to find it.
Arenas was a fan favorite, especially with the Washington Wizards, where he was the centerpiece of their offense. However, things took a dark turn during the 2009-2010 NBA season. Arenas brought firearms into the Wizards' locker room following a dispute with teammate Javaris Crittenton. Instead of handling the situation seriously, Arenas made light of it by joking around and mimicking gun motions during pregame warm-ups, which only made things worse. As a result, NBA Commissioner David Stern suspended Arenas for most of the 2009-2010 season.
Gilbert Arenas suspended indefinitely. This is CBSSports.com, and let's get right to it. This is what NBA Commissioner David Stern had to say about the whole issue, although it is clear that the actions of Mr. Arenas will ultimately result in a substantial suspension, and perhaps worse, his ongoing conduct has led me to conclude that he is not currently fit to take the court in an NBA game.
Constant injuries also played its part in sidelining Arenas, and after just over 500 games, he called it quits. His time in the league was brief, but unforgettable to say the least. Speaking of which, Chris Bosh had an unforgettable career. No Miami fan would have wished for it to end, but if only wishes were horses. Bosh was a key member of the Miami Heat's Big Three, alongside LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, a key member who brought all the shots.
Back to Bosh. Can't fake, dribble, drive, dunk!
He was an 11-time All-Star and won 2 NBA championships. However, Bosh's career was cut short due to life-threatening blood clots. He was forced to retire in 2016 after playing a good number of games, which could have been more. We could have seen more of this.
Pick up the basketball. You got to communicate here. Don't let anything wide open.
Bosh's versatility and skill set made him one of the best power forwards of his generation. A what-if story doesn't get any better than that. Except for our last player, because there are certain players you just can't forget. From his insane skill set to size, Sam Bowie was expected to take the league by storm.
And away, and right there is Sam Bowie. Well, the crowd that came to see Bowie will remember that one.
Wow, what a sequence by Bowie.
Bowie backing in on Ewing, turn, shoot, 17-footer. That's a nice shot. Ewing was right in his face.
Bowie's underneath. Here comes Bryant. Bowie with a shot.
These moves were coming from someone who was projected to be a generational player. Sam Bowie is often remembered as the player drafted ahead of Michael Jordan in 1984. But his story is one of unfulfilled potential. Bowie showed flashes of brilliance on the court.
Kemp has been moving to the basket the second half. Bowie gets the hoop.
But his career was plagued by serious leg issues, limiting him to just over 500 games over 10 seasons. While MJ went on to form a dynasty, Bowie was in and out of the court and gave us the greatest what-if in NBA history. Or was anyone greater? Let us know in the comments. And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out these videos for more NBA content.